Right then, folks. Sorry about that. I'll talk about rusting and weathering. So I've made this car for Zona Alpha, like Daisy, Fallout, all that sort of stuff. Rusty car with some peeling paint. The things I used for this, to make this, were these. I used some of the Green Stuff World rust pigments. I used Army Painter Dry Rust Effect and Light Rust Wash by Ammo by Mig. I used Tamiya Weathering Master, which I always use, and hence Pack C is the best one. I think it's got the best rust in it. But I'm going to do this Plymouth Fury and the rest of Plymouth Fury, but I'm not going to use any of those products. What I'm going to use are these two. So a mid-brown and an orange. I'm going to use this Humbrol Rust Wash, which I picked up from Hobbycraft here in the UK. So a much easier available than the Ammo stuff. This is more like you can make this, but use whatever. I've cheated a little bit. When I say cheat a little bit, I've done a couple of things off camera. So first thing I did off camera was, sorry about the shakiness. First thing I did off camera was to prime this in like a primer red. I also went over it with a file, all different directions, just to rough it up a bit, give it some texture. The good thing about this primer red, it's got a little bit of texture to it. Now, because I've got this red base coat, this oxide base coat, red oxide, it's given us a head start on the rust already. What you're going to need to do this is some sponge. So, some blister sponge. I've got an old baby's bath sponge. And need some sponge. That's how I'm going to do the whole paint job. And then you need your top colour. So the top colour on this one, I'm going to go for a light blue. So it's electric blue by Vallejo. So 4 colours, sponge. I'm going to use my weathering stick purely because then it makes it a little bit easier for me. But it is still a sponge, so easy enough. So what we're going to do first, we've got like a red oxide base. We're going to work out, we're going to cover the whole surface with the sponge with a brown. So not a vast amount of brown either. Seconds, not enough light. Got a new light arm, but it don't want to stay where I want it to. 1 second. Better. So yeah, so we're going to go all the way over. We're not going to be too careful. The texture of the car, where I've hit it with a file and sandpaper, is going to help us with this. Still want to see some of that red oxide. All we're trying to do is mimic the different shades of rust. Right, so I'll leave that to dry and we're going to come back in a sec. Okay, and we're back. I cheated and used a fan. So you can see we've got 2 tones of red there. You've got the red oxide colour, and then you've got the brown on top. I'm going to come with the Trollslayer orange, which I've swapped into a little tiny dot. I need to shake it. Water it down slightly. I'm not even going to swap sponges, I'm just going to keep going. And this is going to look too much. But it's okay. Take a dry sponge. And you can wipe some off as well. Bear in mind the top coat's going to cover most of this. Make sure you get the front surfaces as well. Same as the tailgate, the bottom of the tailgate's got none on it. That's purely due to, there we go, 4/6 around the wrong way. Okay, as you can see, we've got some orange in places. I've dragged it down, already working on the streaks that we want, using a semi-dry sponge. So we've got 3 different colours on there at the moment. Need something to tie it together. That's where this rust wash comes in. Now you can make, it's not difficult, just mix some brown and a tiny amount of orange and a little spot of black together. In fact, should we do it? We'll do that. Brown. Orange. Brown. Brown. Spot of black. I guess we light. Spot of black. I'm going to mix that with some agric surf shade, which you could just use on its own, but we need a paintbrush. A little bit more orange. This is what we've come up with. Now, we're a little bit left over in the colour, but it doesn't matter, we want some darkness in here anyway. There's a bit right there, get it off. So, just mix some colours together with a little bit of agric surf shade to give it that wash consistency. It's going to go on like mud. What I like to do, put it on all over, really generously. Smush it around a bit. Travel with the direction things are going to go. Make sure you get all the nooks and crevices. Get your sponge. And squeeze it out into a piece of tissue. Sorry. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry. I'm going to come back when that's dry. And we're pretty much there. As you can see, it's taken on an all over focus. So my camera shakes a bit, folks, because I've got a boom arm attached to my desk. My desk's alright, the boom arm's alright, it just shakes a little bit. Also attached on the boom arm is a lamp. So when the lamp starts rocking, if I rock the table, everything starts rocking. And it takes a second or two for it to catch up. There we go. It's a new phone as well, which is a bit heavier than the other one, so that adds to the rock, which is great. As you can see, we've got a fairly all over coating now. Let's cut the spots here and there are a different shade of orange, which is what we wanted, and we've got into some of the panel lines. This is what we're going to do next. We're going to get our blue, our top colour. We'll stick it on our palette. We're going to add a tiny amount of water to it, so it's slightly thinned down. Clean our sponge, or use a second sponge. I'm just going to clean it. Now when we get this, we want to avoid as much as possible, so I'm going to go with the side of the sponge, the edges. So we're going to go in a little bit thick, See where this is really thick, and just use it as our palette. Because it's a bold colour, the rust stands out a little bit more. A bit too much there though. A dry sponge. Love letting the forceps do that. Scare the crap out of me. Okay, we're going to leave that to dry and we'll come back in a sec. This is what we're at. It's almost slightly magical. Now, still on my palette from earlier on, I've got that orange. I need a really fine brush. Yeah, it's starting to solidify, which is what we want. So, just going to go along. Sorry, you can't see that because the thing's out of bloody focus. Still got some blue on my sponge. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So I've got the orange on my brush. I'm dragging it down. You can see definitive brush marks. Yeah, and I've got a little bit of blue still on my sponge. Drag it down. Blue on the sponge. And go around and do the whole thing like that. You want it slightly claggy. You can thin it down a little bit. What we're hinting at here is streaks. Now you can, if you use like the light rust wash, or I've got a streak and rust effect, you do that and then use like mineral spirits to feather it out. All we're using is the sponge with the blue to feather it out slightly. We'll go around and do the whole thing and we'll come back. Well, that was silly because I forgot that the camera was off. What I've done as well is I've used the corner of my sponge. I'm just going around all the surfaces, the edges, where there might be some new rust. Just tapping it in very slightly all over. Building up the rust layer. Building up the effect. That's all we're doing. We're trying to go for an effect. We want something that's 2D, flat and has no depth to start having depth. And we're just going to go over the top. Anywhere there's rust showing through, or where we think there should be rust showing through, we're going to follow it round. I'll finish that off and I'll come back. Right, one of the last things we want to do, I'm coming with a neat brown or black wash, just depends, and a fine brush, and just trace the panel lines, just to give them a bit of definition. Wet your brush fairly well. Now if it smears out the panel lines, don't worry about it, just adds to the effect. We're trying to fake depth here. Sometimes we need all the tricks and tips we can, so just because a bit's on that, doesn't make any difference. Just because a bit's overrun, doesn't make any difference, just looks like grime. You can do as well with the brown wash is trace some of those rust streaks and then just can't do it with a blooming glove on. With a bare finger or a little bit of kitchen roll, trace some of those rust streaks. Not all of them, a bit of sponge will do. Managed to smear that everywhere, but doesn't matter. If you touch one of your panel lines though, you need to go back over your panel line because the sponge will soak it up. There you go, I'm just going to panel on the rest of this. And we'll be back. There we go then, folks. Let's move that out a little bit. There we go. All done. I've grubbied up the bumpers and the wheels as well. I was going to put the glass back in, but it's this hideous orange. Oh, finger. It's this hideous orange colour. So the glass can stay out. So it could be another terrain piece. Or it's just got no windows. So super simple. 4 paints really, not including the base coat. So we used a brown, an orange, a blue, and Agris Earth shade, or any other brown wash. That's it. That's literally all we used to get it to this. Super happy with how it turned out. It's a super quick technique and system as well. There's no magic in it. Yeah, it does seem to work better with slightly more specific and technical paints. The texture you get from a dry effect paint, when it dries, the pigment texture comes through a bit more. But we sort of cheated that by using a sponge and waiting for some of the orange paint to go off slightly, so it's not sloppy and it's not solid. So you've got to keep that in mind if you can do it this way. If not, use some technical paints, use some technical stuff. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching.